Have you ever felt like your child spoke a different language and you couldn't figure out why they wouldn't respond to you? And maybe you have two kids and you were speaking to your daughter one day and your older daughter reacts completely different from your younger daughter. And y'all were sitting there on the couch having a conversation and you asked her to clean up her room, but she didn't do it and you couldn't figure out why. She started yelling or started crying. And that's something I think that we as parents have to really understand, is that our kids speak different languages than us. And I don't mean sometimes in a way where they speak in Spanish or English. I remember a time with my younger son, we were at the dentist's office. And while we were at the dentist's office, I was telling him to just kind of sit down and stuff, my younger son, and just tell him, hey, sit down, calm down and stuff like that. And I think for me, it was really a moment to where I started realizing that I can't talk to my younger son the same way I talk to my older son, where I kind of get on him and stuff like that. And I realized that for my younger son, I have to be very calm, very polite, and just talk to him and tell him that, I care about him first, and just explain to him why I'm doing certain type of things. Because once I explained it to him, he was able to really understand. And I remember the dentist just telling me after I closed the door and spoke to my younger son, she said, like, what did you do? And I said, I just talked to him. She said, that's all you did? I said, yeah, there's a certain way you have to talk to him, because if you talk to him in a nice voice, he'll really understand you as a person. But if you don't talk to him in a nice way and you start yelling, he's unresponsive. And there's nothing wrong with him. That is just my younger son's personality. And I think we as fathers can really do is we got to pause before we react. And we got to think about the whole entire situation that we're talking to our child about and say, how should I respond to my child based on what it is that they did? Maybe they broke a vase. Maybe they broke a glass. Maybe they snuck outside the house. But the fact of the matter is, before we speak, let's think about what we're going to say as a father. And the reason why is because once we think about what we're about to say, it's key. And the reason why it's key is because once they say certain things, you can never take it back. So a lot of times when I'm in a relationship with a woman or anything like that, and we have an argument, or even just with my kids, sometimes they may say something, but I don't yell at them. I just stop, take a break. I take in what it is that they've told me, and then I stop and say, okay, how do I want to respond back with this in a couple of different ways? So I pause. And that's what I want you to do as a father, is pause and say, okay, this is what I'm going to say first. Think about it, take in what they said, think about it, and then think about how you're going to respond back. And observe their style. And what I mean by that is, like I had told y'all before with my younger son, he's so calm, he's quieter, but he's so nice. He's so sweet, he's so nice. He's always sharing with his older brother, sharing with his friends, giving people hugs and stuff like that. That's just his personality. He's not mean, he's not rude and stuff, but he's so kind and so kind-hearted and stuff like that. You can give him a hug, just tell him that you love him and stuff. But I love to see that he's not an angry child. He's so happy. And I know with him, I always have to talk to him so calmly. And I love it because that's just who he is as a child. And what you want to do is you want to marry your child's energy. And I don't mean if your child is just sitting out there and your child has a bad attitude. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if your child has a good, positive attitude, why don't you try to mirror that? And if you're not going to mirror it, maybe you can set the tone to say, you know what? I'm going to be the one with the positive attitude, the nice mindset. And the reason why is because once you start it, then your child can do the same thing as you. You can be the leader as a father, and you can teach your child, this is how you respond. You got to be nice. You got to be calm. And that's why I say you want to mirror their energy. If they're nice, you be nice. If they're mean, try to shift it to a nice personality. Use the simple words and not speeches. Sometimes you just want to say, okay, or let me see, let's figure it out. Don't use complex words. Just talk to them in a tone of voice to where they can understand. Use simple words. Because when your child is 5, 6, all the way through 10, sometimes they don't understand these complex words. And as a parent and as a father, we don't want to use these big words that we're using in corporate America. What we want to do is we want to use words where the complexity of their mind as a kid, they can really understand who you are as a father and where it is that you're coming from as a father. This way we can really reflect as a father and say, you know what? I see what you're saying. Let's try to use these tiny little words so you can get what I'm saying, so you can understand my point of view and I can understand your point of view. And you want to validate first and then guide. What I mean by validate first is if your child falls down and they bump their leg and let's say they're crying and they scrape their knee, don't start laughing and stuff. Don't push them down more. Just tell them, okay, maybe they're overreacting. And that happens quite often with kids. They overreact. But maybe they just have a little bit of blood or it's not even bleeding. Don't laugh at or make fun of them. Just tell them, sit down, let's try to scrape off the dirt and stuff like that. And if it is bleeding, I'm not saying you should put hydrogen peroxide on it because that does burn. It cleans it, but that's also a chemical too, so you can have chemical burns. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But what you want to do is just clean it first and say, I understand where you're coming from. Once you do that, they feel loved. And you want your child to feel loved. You want them to have that loving emotion, that love that really endures for a lifetime. This way, once you give them love and you show them and you validate their emotions, they're able to do it to other people. But if you're yelling at them and fussing and fighting and doing all that kind of stuff, they're going to do the same thing. Why? Because you, the father, taught them that. That's why. What you want to do is you want to really turn the connection into a conversation. And man, do I do this all the time. I do this so much with my older son. It's like any little thing that happens, whether he gets in a fight with somebody or he's yelling at his little brother, or maybe both of them get in an argument or something like that, I always really have him sit down. That's like one of my first things I always say, sit down. And the reason why I want them to sit down and let's talk about it first. I try to understand where they're coming from before I just start yelling. And I try to say, hey, what's going on or what happened first, or let me hear your side of the story. And I'm a little bit different because sometimes teachers, they'll call the parents and they'll say your child did this at school. They hit somebody or they smacked them upside the head or they're not listening and stuff. The first thing I always do, and this is why maybe everybody doesn't like this, but I do. My kids have phones and stuff. And I'm not too big on kids having phones when they're younger. But a lot of times before the teacher even calls me, my son has already texted me. That's just the fact of the matter because I always want to listen to what they have to say. Because some parents, they'll believe what the teacher said before they believe what their own child says. And I'm just the type of father that's not like that. I really want to listen to my kids first and see what they have to say. And then from there, I really like to reflect and say, well, what happened or what do we need to change? Let me hear your side. And then I listen to the teacher. Because first of all, I'm trying to take in what they're saying. Why? You got to understand, I have a great relationship with my kids. So I want to listen to what they have to say first. I've known them for longer. They were there for me. I'm there for them. So as a father, I don't neglect that personal relationship and negate the fact that they're telling me something very important and that I need to listen to what it is they're saying. And that's really what I want to tell y'all too. As a father, don't always listen to the teacher. Stop trying to correct them so much and say, you did this wrong. You're not going to be anything or you're a failure. Listen to what they're saying and try to understand where your son or daughter is coming from first and turn it into a conversation to where you can have recollection and y'all go back and forth to talk about the fact of the matter of something that happened. And what also too is you want to turn that connection in to really have that connection to where y'all are bonded together. Because what you do is you don't want to control. So you want to have a connection with your child. I would say I have a great connection with my older son, more than his mom. And there's nothing wrong with his mom, but we spend a lot of time talking. That's why I talk about not having the radio on in the car and not listening to music, because we just sit there and talk. We talk about life. We talk about soccer. We talk about food. And they know, cut off everything in the car. We're talking. We had an hour-long drive yesterday for my son's game. It was in a whole nother part of Houston. If you live in Houston, you already know Houston is pretty spread out. But the fact of the matter is that I was able to talk to him and just talk to him about the game and life, and then ask him about his YouTube channel that I think he got I think YouTube cut him off because he's been doing some copywriting and stuff like that. But I was able to have a great conversation with him and really just talk to him and see how's everything going? How was life? How's your mom? How's your dog? They got 2 dogs now. How's your aunt? And I just loved it because I talked about do you like your new team that you're on? He's like, yes. And since he's like Mexican, like half Mexican, I'm a La Familia, like your family. So he loves it because he gets to play with his friends and stuff like that. So he's so much more happier on this team. But we really have that good connection, and I don't ever try to control my kids. I always ask them, like, what do you want to do? And it's up to you. Like yesterday, after the game, he wanted to stay and spend time with his friends. And I was thinking he wanted to go out to eat, and he did. But another parent, he asked the other parent, can we all stay here and like eat or go out to eat? And I was like, man, it's not really daddy just drive. What do you want to do? So then we ended up having pizza, and then we drank at the park. And what I mean is I drank some Cokes and stuff like that. And it was really such a good time just to have him there with his friends. And then we all hung out. And I was so happy because not only did I got to spend time with him independently away from his brother, because his brother was at another event, and then he got to spend time with him. So at the end of the day, you know what? Just speak your child's language. Figure out like how they talk, figure out how to connect with your child, have observation, and really be able to have that close connection that you can with your kids. So other than that, you already know, like, share, subscribe. We got to get this content out to all the fathers. Y'all already know how we do it. Peace. I'm out.